Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week we got Ricky and Dre on from the MMG squad, and we got Zach on with GFI. I think you're wearing a lot of hats right now, so I'm not even going to try to give the full introduction correctly.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let you ride out with the introduction.
Absolutely, man. Zach Neves, active duty Marine station out here. Currently on recruiting duty, special duty assignment, United States Marine Corps.
See, I would botch that. Huge.
GFI covers a lot of hats. Work in finance part-time. I like to tell people that I can show you how to grow your money risk and tax-free. Two things people don't think is possible. But I really only wear one hat when it comes to that. And it's just asset optimization and reducing taxes. So Marine Corps, full-time, finance part-time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of this, we always kind of back it up. I think a lot of times people are very prone to talking about what they do, things like that. But I think realistically, people are more intrigued with the story and how it all came to be and who you are.
Sure.
So you tell me where do you want to start the story at?
Where do you want me to start the story at?
I mean
where were you born?
So I was born in Mesquite, Texas, which is Dallas County.
Good question, Dre. It's not Kansas City.
Let's go. Not from here. Mesquite, Texas. Lived in Dallas County, I think, till I was like 2 or 3. Then pretty much after that, we moved down to Freestone County, which is off of Interstate 45.
Yeah, they have a national motocross track there too, right?
I have no idea.
Freestone?
Yeah.
Did it actually?
Yep.
I have no idea. Pretty tiny down there. Not a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
But if that's a thing, that's pretty sweet.
Real estate's a lot cheaper down there.
Absolutely. But yeah, I grew up in small town Texas pretty much my whole life. Had a good childhood. Parents were awesome and have 4 brothers and a sister, so we kept busy. Then growing up as a kid, I saw all those commercials on the military you see, like Army Strong and Marines to Feed the Proud and things like that. And I think my mom told me from the age of 6 is when I started being like, yeah, I think I'm gonna join the military. And then I guess fast forward after high school, that's what I did. Straight out of high school, joined the Marine Corps. So
you go out and join the Marine Corps. What year was that?
2017.
2017. What does that look like going in?
And how'd you end up on the Marine Corps?
Yeah.
Well, I think doing some research on the military branches, I wanted to do the hardest one.
So Air Force?
Absolutely. No, I'm just kidding. And I think just the Marine Corps had that kind of environment background kind of structured behind it with their marketing techniques. And that's just kind of what tailored to me, I think, growing up. Wanted the challenge, wanted to get out where I was from. Got in a lot of trouble in high school. Doing a lot of things I probably shouldn't have been doing. So I think I'm pretty fortunate to be where I'm at today. But yeah, I knew that was my way out of where I was from. There wasn't nothing in that town, man. Small town, Teague, Texas. If anybody is watching this and knows where that is, you probably understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, just nothing to do there but get in trouble. Partied a lot and pastor parties and things that young boys do. So did that. But yeah, I wanted the challenge, answer your question, wanted to do something hard. And I just knew that was my ticket to get out of where I was from. So,
because I feel like a lot of when it definitely comes to just if it's Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever it may be, there's always kind of a tiff of who's where on this totem pole, and that was a good question, Ricky. It is kind of intriguing to where it's like, what does that selection process look like? Did you look at the Navy? Did you look at Army? Like, did you talk with recruiters? Did you have a recruiter that was just better on Marine Corps side? Well,
yeah. So, at high schools, they do the whole career fair thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember talking to Army recruiters and thinking to myself, I think I want to be a pilot. I remember that thought. I think I was at like a field trip to like a national career day in high school. I think it was like maybe my sophomore or junior year. And the Marines were there with a trailer, and it was like a whole VR thing going on in the trailer. I think I went in there and did it, and I came out, and they had this little iPad. Hey, put your info in for a free shirt or whatever it was. Put my info in, and like the next day, I'm like laying in my bed at home. A recruiter calls me. At the time, he was Sergeant Lee. Now he's a Chief Warrant Officer. Shout out to you, my recruiter. I still talk to him this day. I don't think it was until recently, maybe a year ago, that I realized how different the Marine Corps was from the other branches being a recruiter. Because obviously I'm taught that sort of thing, that way I can speak intelligently on it, somebody else who's looking to join the Marine Corps. But when you look at the other branches, Army, land, Navy, water, Air Force, air, the Marine Corps is kind of in all those environments. We like to call ourselves amphibious. And I think that's kind of subconsciously what grasped my attention was the variety of what you're able to do in the Marine Corps. But I don't think I realized that again until recently. And I was like, okay, I think that's kind of what gravitated me towards this branch. And they're the smallest, in my opinion, the most badass branch in the military. So there's that. Obviously, I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's what I do want to get into, like hearing, because we've had a couple guys on from different branches, and like 2 guys were on that were both Rangers, and like their like training regiment side was definitely, when they got to Ranger school, I was like, I feel like I'm a pretty bad unit, but then I'm like hearing them talk about stuff. I'm like, oh, man, I'm not that bad of a unit. I'm like that, like the swamps and stuff of Louisiana out there. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like alligators. I don't like snakes. And like, you guys are living with them for like a month. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. But what did that training look like when you start? Like, the stories were crazy that we heard from those guys just from the day they started till the end.
It's like day one. You sit there. It's like, hey, tell your family you love them. I'm out.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. So like Army Rangers obviously go to Army boot camp first. Army Ranger School is just a pipeline of training, and that training's most definitely intense. And every branch of service has their own intensity. I would say when it comes to basic, boot camp level training. But boot camp wasn't too bad. We do have the longest boot camp. I want to say we're the hardest boot camp, but obviously I've never been to Army boot camp or Navy boot camp or Air Force boot camp, but I can't imagine it's harder than Marine Corps boot camp. Marine Corps boot camp, you're kind of taken away from everything you've known the last 17, 18 years of your life and forced to survive. There's a sense of security there, knowing like, all right, well, they don't want to drop me. They want to retain me here to become a Marine. But at the same time, it's up to you to graduate. You know what I mean? So, but boot camp wasn't too bad. I mean, like it sucked, but
you're making it sound really cool.
So like when you show up like day one of boot camp, because listen to some of these other guys, like when they got in, he's like, he goes, you think you're like showing up? And he's like, I've been training. He's like, I've been doing all this shit. And he goes, I waited like a week on the medical side. He goes, they just make you stand in the same fucking spot outside all day. Yeah, he's like, you just stand there, wait for your name to be called. He's like, just hours to stand there. I'm like, what?
The first 5 days are process. They call it the first week is processing. So let's see. Left from Dallas. I remember him saying like, hey, say goodbye. My mom was there. She didn't like physically get to tell me bye. She like waved me bye, essentially. But got on a bus, took me to the airport.
What's going through your head while you're on that bus?
Uncertainty.
Do you think at that point, like, are you thinking like
what? No.
Is this a good idea right now?
What did I get myself into? Yeah.
There's a bus full of people right here that just made the same decision I did.
Like, hey, sit down, shut up, don't say a word. And you're just like, all right, well, what's going on? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same feeling I had coming on this podcast, my first podcast. Just nervous, excited, don't really know.
You're saying this stacked up?
No. But same feelings. Like what am I doing? What's it going to be like? You have all these questions flooding your mind you don't know the answers to. Anxiety. It's like, all right, now I'm stressed out. Like I don't know how to do this anymore. But you get to the airport and you're kind of just, hey, here's your plane ticket. Here's a meal voucher for $20. Your plane leaves at whatever time. Just make sure you're there. So when I got to San Diego, because I went to boot camp in San Diego, that's when I was
sounds like a pretty good place to go to boot camp.
I was like,
actually,
holy shit, this is so.
Weather's great here.
I think my flight left from Dallas at like 10 or 11 p.m. So I was up all day, and then I landed in San Diego. I think it's an hour ahead with the time of the flight and and the time difference, I think it was maybe 10 or 11, 12, midnight, whatever it was. Got off the plane, and San Diego Airport closes. I don't think people really know that. It's tiny.
San Diego Airport kind of sucks.
I like it because there's only one runway and it's pretty quick, but it closes like at a certain time. So we get off the plane and there's nothing going on. Like all the shops are closed down, the gates are down, all the lights are off, and you just have this one drill instructor standing there with his hat, just like, hurry the fuck up. I'm like, oh shit.
Guess that's my guy.
So we're running through the airport, like they're just like, let's go. You're running through the airport. And
Can I hit the vending machine?
like down, and then you got this dude, drill instructor, standing outside. He's lining everybody up. And they're just throwing people on these buses, and you get on the bus. Never forget this. It was an old white guy, and he was just playing this like hood trap rap music, and I was like, "This is awesome."
I'm in a movie.
But you sit on the bus, and the drill instructor comes on, and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna sit down and put your head down. You're not gonna say a word. Don't even look out the windows." So we're all just like sitting there, hands on our knees, just down, like, "Oh my God, what are we doing here?" Get to MCRD. San Diego, MCRD is Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and that's when you hop on the yellow footprints, and there's just yellow footprints just next to each other, in rows of 4 and down. We're just standing there. We have it's like a manila folder with all of our stuff in there, and we're like hugging it like this. So you show up with a manila folder with like your birth certificate, your social, your enlistment paperwork, things like that, and then the clothes on your back is what you have. Maybe a driver's license if you.
So you don't have like anything else with you?
No.
It's just everything that makes you a citizen is with you.
Essentially, yeah. To identify who you are.
So do you not take like a phone with you?
You can. I didn't. I just left it with my mom. I was like, there's really no point. Because they put all of your personal effects when you get there into a cardboard box, and it sits in a shack for 3 months, and you get it back like the week you graduate. Yeah. So, but yeah, processing week, right? So, the first week's processing. So
we're gonna start doing that when people come to MMG. First week, bring your folder, clothes on your back, and you stand there. We're gonna process all week.
It's rough though, man. They keep you up for like 2 days, not on purpose. I think there's just a lot going on, and that's just kind of what they have to do.
Logistically,
they're like trying to brief you and let you know what's going on, and you got to go talk to these guys, and you move over here to go talk to these guys. But yeah, you're up for. I think I was up for 49 hours. I think I counted, and I was like, yeah, I'm exhausted. But by the first day, by the time that's all over, like the first 2 days, you're just so like mentally checked out. You're like, all right, I'd do anything to like sleep right now. But yeah, you get all of your uniforms, things like that. Then they put you in a receiving squad bay because there's still a lot to happen when you get there, obviously. But same thing. Like they line you up at medical, so you're standing there all day. Camis are all buttoned up to the neck, and you don't look like a Marine at all. You look like a recruit, and they do a pretty good job of doing that. But yeah, you get all the vaccines, and like all the medical paperwork happens. Height, weight, all that stuff happens the first week, and then you have Black Friday, which is
So it's Black Friday.
buddy.
A lot of sales.
It sounds like something on Wolf of Wall Street.
I wish, man. No. I think they call it that because you think like, oh, okay, it's something really cool. But that's the day you pick up with your training company and you meet all of your drill instructors. But pretty much Friday morning, they come in there screaming and yelling and pack up all your stuff in your sea bags. You got a sea bag on your back. You got a sea bag on your front. And they're just hiking you to your squad bay buildings. And then you go in there, and then drill instructors come in and just mess your world up.
So how long a hike is this over?
No, I said hike. It's maybe, I don't know, quarter, half a mile to the building. It's not very far. They're stepping, like they're moving, like quick. So you're like trying to keep up, and there's like gaps, and you're getting yelled at. It's just hectic. Looking back, it wasn't that bad. During the moment, I was like, what am I doing?
How many people dropped out during that first week?
Well, the first week was just
like sitting there, like, the amount of people sitting there going through, like, dude, I messed up. Like,
I think you probably see more drug pops that week than anything.
Dude,
like
what?
People, like drug pops, like people popping on a drug test.
They fail.
Yeah, because maybe they partied before they left, and they're like, oh, they're not going to drug test me. Like, yeah, okay. Show up, fail a drug test, and they get shit back home. Discharged.
Dude, that'd be a hell of a conversation to have with your parents when you got back.
Why'd you put it? I don't know. They just didn't want me there.
They didn't want me there. I'm allergic to bees. They said I couldn't be there.
I think that's 90% of the conversation those individuals have with their parents. Yeah, they just didn't want me.
But
they said I should go for the Army.
It's boot camp. Marine Corps boot camp attrition isn't that bad. again, like I said, they try to keep you there. So if you want to quit, you go talk to the officer in charge, and he'll do whatever he can to keep you on. But yeah, I mean, there's certain things you would say if you really didn't want to be there. I think we all know what they are. But, yeah.
So like, what do you go through during that boot camp?
So boot camp is them training you to be a Marine. So you're earning the title. You're not considered a Marine until you complete the Crucible of boot camp, which is like the culminating event in a sense. That's like 70 or 59 hours long. You sleep like maybe 3 or 4 hours at an entire time. They give you 3 meals on day one. You're supposed to make them last. When I did it, our company commander told us we were supposed to hike 52 miles. We ended up hiking like 79 or something like that. So we're just on foot all day. But yeah, so the entire, 11 weeks at boot camp was 12 weeks, but the last week you're a Marine, or at least when I went, that's how it was. I think they switched it up now, but the 11 weeks they're just teaching you how to be a Marine, drill, marching in unison, uniform, that's how you're supposed to wear it. It's how your ribbons go on. That's how you iron it. It's how you fold your sleeves. This is how you're supposed to present yourself. Physical training. They do a really good job at making you face your fears. If you're scared of heights, they got the rappel tower. If you're scared of water, they make you do the swim qual.
See, they put me on that wall. I'm like, you know what, guys? I think I'm gonna go home.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a ringer of all kinds of different environments that they put you through. That way, you finish it, and
for the longest time, like Dalton and I actually both like thought real hard for a good while that we were going in the Navy, and one of my biggest like fears of the whole entire thing was like I was not scared of fucking training. Like we worked out twice a day. We were in fucking phenomenal shape. Like we ate, slept, breathed, like physical training. I knew I was like mentally strong. Heights were like the one thing that I was like that's gonna fucking cripple me. I
actually didn't even get to do the rappel tower. Now that I think about it, I had pneumonia at boot camp. 18 years old, I had pneumonia. Yeah. So I was bedridden for 3 days.
Well, how tall is the rappel tower? Like guesstimate.
Maybe like 40 or 50 yards.
It's pretty tall.
How high would you say the deck of a Navy ship is from the
Oh, dude, that's pretty tall up there.
Dang. There's no way you'd be
70, 80, 100 yards maybe. Some of those ships are pretty big, man.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. That was like, literally, out of the whole thing, people were like, what would you be scared of? I'm like, really just the heights. I'm like, if they kept me low,
there's no way you'd be able
I'm
to
good if I'm low. Like, but it was funny. That was like my only like fear of the whole thing. And it was just like as silly as it was.
I think I really should be all right.
Yeah.
See, I was thinking like Air Force, dude.
I was sitting there thinking, and like you watch, like he and I both talked about, like if we did it, we'd both go to like SEAL training. Like that was like our whole thought process. And there's companies down south that you can go train with that like really prep you for SEAL training. And it was like we've already looked them up. Like we go train with them for 6 months and go into SEAL training, be no problem. But it was like all of it. It's like all this like rappelling out of helicopters and stuff like that. Like all they put you through. I'm like, oh, I was like, Dad.
What part of a SEAL did you want to be?
Like a water SEAL. Yeah, like the part where they're in the water. I was always a strong swimmer. I've always liked swimming. I was like, you know what? I'd do good on that part.
You think that, so you get in the pool, man.
Yeah.
Go do a deep end card. I know you guys don't know what that is, but some viewers probably do. Yeah.
So what's that?
Deep end card, man.
Is that where they go and they tie your feet together, your hands together and everything?
I've never had to do that, but I've done like WSA, Water Survival Advanced, and some McQuist courses, which are just water survival courses in the Marine Corps that were pretty intense. I mean, a lot of it's team building, but I think the main focus of a deep end card is to slay the shit out of you.
Yeah. So
you like brick tows, so 25-pound brick, you got to tow. You got to keep the brick above the water, so you're really only swimming with one hand and you're on the deep end. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Like underwater football sometimes, that's actually really fun if you never played that. Torpedo, it's pretty legit.
We had a pool all growing up. It just wasn't big enough to play underwater football. We probably would have tried.
Yeah.
It was 3.5 feet deep.
It's funny. People pass out all the time. It's crazy. You got to like come up, catch a breath, go down, and people got the torpedo and they're like punching each other in the face underwater and like grabbing you by the neck to get you to release it. And you're like, dude, what's going on? But it's fun though. But yeah, one time they threw a tractor.
Like a complete blast.
I miss great time, man. I don't know about you guys, but one time they threw a tractor tire in the deep end. and our objective was to get it to float to the surface. So we're all like, I think there's like 4 of us. So we're all like catching breaths, going down, blowing our lungs out under the tire so it would float. And one person has to be on the tire at all times. So like somebody's down there, like we're taking turns, right? But you don't figure that out. They're just like, all right, get the tire to float. So you don't really have time to game plan. So like people are getting frustrated. And
the probably hard part of that too is like, especially when you're doing water side, is you can't communicate with everyone like underwater.
You're like,
so, yeah.
and
I need
you're
air.
like, yeah.
I also need air. Like we all
You're
need
like,
fucking
all right,
air.
I need,
Been down here for 3 breaths, dude.
I need a breath. Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun. They do like, I forgot what they call it, but they put a center block down there and you have to get it from one end of the pool to the next. And you, it's like if me and you were doing it, like one of us has to be on the brick at all times. So like you go up, catch your breath, and maybe you'll move it. You'll flip it once, we'll swap. And that's just how you do it. So it sounds easy, but you're checked out because if you don't have the lung capacity to hold your breath that many times or for that long, you're just like, I
How
can't.
deep a pool is this?
I think it's like it's not, I don't know, 23 feet or something like that? 17, 18 feet? I have no idea. It's a pool.
I mean, a deep end to me is 9 foot.
Oh, no, it's down.
I was gonna say
Like you're swimming up to the
I was gonna
surface.
say, like,
It's not
12.
Like you're just,
maybe like 15. I'd probably say 15, 16 feet.
like it's a little bit of a swim to get to the top. Right?
Yeah, like a lot of people just kick off from the bottom.
Yeah.
Which is what you'd want to do.
Don't fucking look at me like I'm stupid.
I'm looking at you.
You're like,
He's
oh,
like, yeah, dumbass. What are you? No, I'm just kidding.
I know exactly how deep the deep end is.
You've been there, right?
Pool's fun though.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. A lot of people don't, but
So did you do any air stuff?
no. Never did any air things in the Marine Corps. I'm actually a diesel mechanic by trade in the Marines. I work on a 903 cubic inch Cummins V8. It's huge. It's like the size of this table.
Was that the first time you got interested in being into mechanics in general, or was that something that you had grown up?
Good story. Or good question. So I actually enlisted as a combat engineer. That was my contract. And I was going to be a combat engineer. It's not one of those scenarios where like, oh, my recruiter lied to me. My recruiter was awesome. He was honest. He was transparent. He's like, hey, it's going to suck. But when I was at Marine combat training, I actually volunteered for recon. Recon's like I'm trying to compare it to another branch. Like they're like the step down from our MARSOC or Marine Raider branch, which is our seat at the SOCOM table, Special Operations Command. But I volunteered for recon, went to recon. I actually dropped out of the pool. I drowned. Like I blacked out underwater. We were doing twos. I don't know why they call them twos. But you're like floating there and you're like right next to each other. So like you're like I'm hitting you and you're hitting me and you're in like water splashing and you're like trying to breathe and you're like winded. And they say 2 and then you gotta go down and touch the bottom of the pool and come back up. And they just do it over and over and over again. Well, I blacked out at the bottom and the instructor brought me to the side of the pool, basically resuscitated me. He's like, hey man, you got 3 minutes to get back in the water. I was like, no, like absolutely not. Like I just, what? Like, no, I'm not. So I quit recon. And that's actually probably the biggest regret in my career was quitting instead of just keeping going. But yeah, since then I've gotten way more proficient in the pool. But at that point,
Live and learn.
most swimming I've done was swimming in like a lake growing up. So I was never like, I went to a small high school. We didn't have like water polo or a swim team or anything. So I was just like trying to do my best.
Well, I don't know of a lot of schools that have water polo.
I've been to a lot of schools that have, especially out here in Missouri.
Where?
Recruiting, yeah. Like Columbia, Missouri's got a few.
We got a whole. They're a lot bigger than that.
Any out here in Kansas City?
I don't know. I don't go to high schools out here. I go to colleges.
Any colleges out
Oh
here?
yeah, there's a lot of swim teams in colleges. Yeah.
Swim teams. Water polo, I feel like water polo is actually a very impressive sport to watch.
Bro, they
the fact
tread
they're in a
water
deep
for 6
pool?
to 8 hours a day training.
That's like kind of absurd.
It's crazy.
Are you recruiting water polo people?
I have, yeah.
It's probably good person to
Hey,
go
but what
after.
sports you play? Water polo? I got you. Man. What, you're fit. You don't look like it, but you're fit. I know. Yeah. But yeah, so went to recon, dropped out of there, and then I got reclassed as a diesel mechanic. I was actually pretty bummed out about it. I was like, man, I don't want to do this. But then I went to the school. I sat in training, or I was in MAT platoon, which is Marines awaiting training. I sat there for 3 months doing nothing. If you know, you know. And then I finally picked up with a class.
So if you don't know, what does that look
You
like?
just sit there and do nothing. Literally.
For how long?
You'll do like working parties, which is like you go do something for somebody else for a few hours. But yeah, I sat there for 3 months, 90 days.
So like that point, you just like, you know what, fuck
I'm
you
like,
guys.
what am I doing here?
I'm going home. I'm going home.
And I
Like,
think, yeah,
I think that'd be the fastest way for them to like detour me out of anything, was just trying to make. When these other guys came on, like when they were talking about the week of like just going through the check-in process and medical and everything like that, out of all of it, I'm like, if I was to quit, it would have been that week. I was like,
that's rough, man. You're just like standing there, just hurry up and wait.
yeah.
They hurry up and get there, and you wait there for an hour.
So
I'm
no
like
one-
the least patient person on the planet, so just not doing something, like I'd go ape
Then you
shit.
get like 8 shots in a row, and the next day you can't raise your arms. You're just like, fuck, dude, what's going on? But yeah, long-winded answer to your question, but I actually ended up enjoying it quite a bit, the diesel mechanic side. I've always been very mechanically inclined. I didn't know that until I went to the schoolhouse. But I enjoyed the problem-solving aspect of it, and every day was different. Something different was broken every day. So it wasn't the same monotonous type work. But yeah, then that kind of sparked an interest, which then became a hobby in mechanics, which shifted from diesels to motorcycles. And now a big hobby of mine is working in building motorcycles and riding motorcycles. So
Very cool.
nice.
So you said working on those engines. What are those engines of?
So it's an amphibious assault vehicle. There's a new vehicle variant now. It's called the ACV, Amphibious Combat Vehicle. But it's basically a tank that floats in the water that has weapon systems on it. Been around since the 70s. It's gone some modifications since then, so it's not 54 years old, but yeah, it's a pretty sweet vehicle. I enjoyed it, but they're phasing it out. There's an accident that happened a few years ago. Some Marines passed away tragically, so they decided to implement a new vehicle. But yeah,
Are they still running pretty much the same motors in them?
no, now it's a Detroit, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I haven't worked on those vehicles or touched them at all. They came out when I was out here on recruiting duty. But yeah, looking to go back and learn.
Yeah.
Go to the courses and stuff.
So once you get done with training, you get done with all that, you get trained in the diesel mechanics side. What's the next chapter after that look like in the Marines for you?
Sure. So that course was 3 months long, and they call it AAV RB, I think. So AAV, Amphibious Assault Vehicle Repairs Basic. And they just teach you, hey, it's how you troubleshoot a motor. It's how you troubleshoot electrical, basic mechanic stuff. And then there's an advanced course after you can go to. But I actually got stationed at the schoolhouse at Amphibious Assault School, Camp Delmar, Camp Pendleton, Southern California, right there on the beach. It was pretty great. Non-deployable unit, unfortunately. I wanted to deploy, but got stuck there for almost 3 years. But my job, I was a part of tracked vehicle maintenance platoon. And obviously the schoolhouse job is to train students. So students would go drive the vehicles, break them, bring them back. I'd fix them. And that's kind of the tempo. It's pretty quick. Got really good at my job really fast. And then I was there from July of 2018 to October of 2020. I guess a little over 2 years. And I was just doing that. I moved my way up to maintenance chief for a training and instructor company. So I had 7 vehicles under my charge, each one valued at, I think it's like $5 million or something. So $35 million worth of equipment I was in charge of. And yeah, I was just doing that. Had a few mechanics under my belt that I was leading along the way, and then left Amphibious Assault School finally after I re-enlisted, of course. And my re-enlistment incentive, a lot of people don't know this, but if you re-enlist in the Marine Corps, you can tell them like, hey, if I re-enlist, I want to do this. So my incentive was to deploy because I just spent 3 years in a non-deployable unit. So then I moved over to CLB 11, which is Combat Logistics Battalion 11, still on Camp Pendleton, just further inland. And then there I became the ordnance chief as a corporal, which is, let me explain rank here, which is a staff NCO billet, which typically is somebody who's been in the Marine Corps for 8, 9, 10 years. I was holding it as somebody who's been in for 3 years. So that's pretty cool. Accident happened, AAV sank off San Clemente Island in SoCal. Marines died, Navy sailors died, and then they landlocked AAVs, meaning they weren't allowed to go in the water anymore, which means we just lost all of our amphibious capabilities. So the AVs that were deploying with the 15th MEU got canceled, so they didn't deploy. And then at CLB 11, we were supposed to deploy with the 11th MEU, which we did. And they were actually about to move me and my platoon, which is just me and 2 other AAV guys, to another non-deployable unit. And I was like, no, this is my incentive to fucking deploy. I'm deploying. So then I had to talk to my OIC, and we had some 3D printers and laser engravers. And I was like, hey, can we just run that? We can call it additive manufacturing. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. That way you guys can deploy and at least do something. So on deployment, that's what we did. I ran a 3D printer, laser engraved a bunch of stuff. I engineered. I reverse engineered a bunch of things for aircraft and EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. I did a lot of cool stuff for UAS, which is unmanned air surveillance. I built a lot of parts for UAVs, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, that's what I did on deployment. So didn't do any diesel mechanics on deployment. Helped out motor T a little bit here and there. But yeah, that I was additive manufacturing is what we called it on deployment. So we actually ended up saving the MEU $2.5 million, which was pretty sweet. So just down there, computer aided design, just designing stuff, measurements, down there for hours.
So where'd you deploy to?
So we deployed height of COVID, so wasn't a whole lot going on. I think we were supposed to port in like 7 or 8 or 9 countries, something like that. And then countries were like, no, we don't want you guys here because of COVID, even though we were all vaccinated and whatnot. So we spent 3 months on ship from August to November. Yeah, it was like, November. We spent on boat, which was terrible. If you've ever deployed with the Navy or the Marine Corps, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 3 months on ship, big metal box in the ocean. And I was on the big deck, which is one of the bigger ships. And they were always in flight quarters. And when a ship's in flight quarters, you can't go outside. You can only go to the smoke pit, which isn't like really outside. It's like on the side of the boat. So there's been times.
Could you smoke cigars on the ship?
People brought cigars on ship. They didn't sell cigars on ship though. So you had to know somebody or.
Those are probably a pretty valuable item on ship.
Yeah, people were bargaining and trading all the time. A few of my buddies took like logs of Copenhagen and cartons of cigarettes with them because like the ship store sells out of those things. And people will pay like $20 a can of snuff. Like,
so we went to, Dalton and I went to Spain for 6 weeks. And we get there. First thing Dalton does is he brings like fucking 2 logs with him. We were there for a week and we're going into a couple different like smoke shops and things like that, and everyone in Spain smokes cigarettes.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to find chew, and everyone's looking at him like he's got 5 heads when he's asking about it.
They have
snuff. Yeah, they have snuff and stuff like that, but they don't have chew over there. And so
Dalton, like Levi Garrett, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. They're like, yeah.
Oh.
Hey, Red Bull snuff. I don't know if you've had it. It ain't bad.
So we get over there. Dalton can't find anything, so he's fucking banging heaters and fucking trying to find chew everywhere. And finally calls his grandma. I was like,
"Can you send me some of this?"
He goes, "She did." He goes, "Can you send me a log?" And we get up one day. We're getting ready in the room. Dalton's like, "Fuck!" I'm like, what? He's like, my fucking chew's stuck in customs.
Yeah, that's snacky. Yeah,
it was like stuck in customs for like 4 days, and Dalton didn't have chew. And dude, every day because we were hiking like what, fucking 10 plus miles a day. We were out hiking all day, every day up in the mountains. And Dalton, the second we get to hiking, just puts a fucking fat dip in and just all day. So like we had like 4 days he didn't have anything, and he was just so flustered.
Bet he was a joy to be around.
Yeah. Whoa. No, people brought logs and cartons, man. Like every time, or I was talking to somebody about the space we had. You, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you have a rack and there's like an 8-inch gap under your bed. Your bed like folds up, and that's like where you put all your stuff. And I've seen like racks, like beds of people just like cartons and cartons. Like, hey man, what you want? I got it. You know, like Camels, Camel Crush, Marlboro, what you want? Like
sounds like prison.
It's hey, listen, birthing is gin pop. But yeah, man, there's probably during it's one of those moments where you're like, hey, this is really shitty. But then you look back,
does anything get to the, like, so when that ship went out,
you do get mail, yeah.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah. They call it a RAS, resupply at sea. So they'll have ships that come from shore to bring supplies, like food and stuff. Obviously, we eat. And they'll bring stuff for the ship store to restock, and they'll bring food, like I said. And then they also bring mail. So when somebody ships to like an FPO, which is like a deployed address, it'll stop on the border of wherever we're at, and then they'll bring it via boat, or they'll fly it in through helicopter.
So like our mom was deployed twice.
Yeah.
Like Iraq, And when she was gone, like anytime we'd send mail or anything, it was like a whole ordeal. But
How long ago was that?
that would have been 2010.
Yeah, it's probably.
Yeah, it was 2010 to 2012. It was like would have been my like sophomore, junior, senior into freshman year of college.
I was
Back then,
eighth
it
grade.
took weeks. Yeah, they called it snail mail.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty quick on ship. You get, I mean, we were able to order like Amazon packages because we still had internet and we were allowed to get on Amazon. There was a few sites they let us on, Facebook, but it's not the internet you think about. It's like, hey man, it's taking like 5 minutes for your page to load, and like you got lucky if you're able to order something on Amazon.
So it's dial up.
Basically, it takes forever. But we get our packages in like a week or two, so it wasn't terrible. I think they did they've definitely significantly increased whatever it is they were doing for mail because it doesn't take that long now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got mail, got a few care packages from the family and snacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I would have been a big, if I was stuck on a ship for 3 months, I would have been a big snack guy.
Have you been to I think it's the Lexington down in Texas? I think that's what the ship's called. Could be completely wrong.
Why are you looking at me like I've been there?
No.
What? Dalton's
Yeah.
been to.
So down there,
He was on that ship in Nam.
no,
Dalton
you
was.
go down. If you go down, you can see kind of like sleeping quarters, everything. And Chuck, my wife's dad, he kind of went through the boat. He's like, yeah, it all looks about the exact same. I was like,
Because he was in the Navy when it was.
How old is that ship? Do you know?
Yeah.
Like it's definitely way better now than it was back then.
well, he was in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, I mean they've
And
done some improving, but it's still, you walk on and you're like, all right, man, this is like, what the fuck is this?
Well, he went in. He's like,
How many people were on that ship when you were on it?
I think we had like 3,500 Marines on there.
This damn near like a carnival.
Maybe
cruise.
not. I don't know.
Austin Scott was in the Navy, and because the Navy there, is it 3 months at a time or is it 6 months?
I don't know for the Navy. We were gone for 6 or 7 months.
So where'd you end up porting in
Oh, we finally ported in Bahrain.
Bahrain?
Yeah, great time.
I don't know. Where's that at?
It's tiny country in the Persian Gulf. I think it's like 600 square miles. Crazy small.
He was going over with me. I'm like,
Dude,
dude, I've never heard of that.
Crazy small. It was a great time though because we spent 3 months in a metal box in the ocean with no cell service, and then they gave us 4 days of liberty, which is just time off. So we were out there partying. We threw a few pool parties in Bahrain. Just had a good time. Yeah, a lot of people come from Saudi Arabia to party in Bahrain because Saudi Arabia was a dry country. So they would like drive across the border into Bahrain and come party.
I've heard of dry states and like dry counties. I've never heard of a dry country.
But it's actually really nice out there too. Yeah, went to a mall. It's huge.
So how long were you there?
We were in Bahrain for 4 days.
And then where?
And then we left, hopped back on ship. We sailed down to Oman. We were supposed to get off in Oman and do something. They didn't really give us the details on it. But one of the other ships in the fleet came back towards us and did whatever we were supposed to do, which we were pretty bummed out about. But there's a Russian sub and a Chinese destroyer down there, and they were trying to landlock us. Essentially is what happened. So we went down there to maintain the presence, and then I think we sailed around there for 2 weeks or so, and then we sailed up to Kuwait. We offloaded some infantry in Kuwait. They did their thing for a few weeks, went and picked them up, and then they offloaded us. And the logistics battalion's job was to prepare for, they called it ECC. I'm trying to think of what the acronym stands for. EVAC something. But essentially there was a terrorist organization in Ethiopia who was threatening to bomb the U.S. Embassy. So they pretty much offloaded us to go train to evacuate the State Department and any U.S. Citizens. So we were doing that with the Army we did that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then we got the word that the Ethiopian government didn't want our help anymore. So we hopped up back on the boat and then sailed back, went to Africa, had a great time down there. Not a good time.
So do you guys like know kind of what's taking place here? Or you just kind of along for the ride?
No.
Like oh shit,
like if
there's
you know,
land, we're pouring.
Yeah.
Like what's up?
well, I mean, we sailed by the Philippines and like Singapore, and we're like, oh yeah, nice. And we're like, wait, why are we going past it? What's going on? But no, if you knew somebody who like worked intelligence, obviously you're talking to them, hey man, you know where we're going. Like my buddy had an in with a Navy sailor.
Guys, like, you give me a carton of cigarettes, I'll tell you where we're going.
No, seriously, yeah, no, really. So kind of we kind of knew what was going on to an extent, but you don't know like the details till really you get there.
It's a need to know basis.
They don't want to tell you, like if I was telling you where you're deploying to, you're going to tell your family, and then your family's going to tell somebody, and then your family's who told somebody is going to tell somebody. Next thing you know, the enemy knows where you're at. They probably know where we're at anyways, to be honest, but it's just an operational security thing, OPSEC. So just try to keep it as quiet as they can.
I always set up a whole brokerage on the boat where I had stuff being mailed in that I knew what the intelligence guys wanted to be able to get that, to then broker that to everyone else on what I needed.
Like,
it's almost how the people at prison kind of get information.
Yeah. You got to get up to the higher powers. It's a pyramid.
Have
you
seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is the
plot. I'm not going to compare life on ship to prison, but there's been a few times, like one time they called general quarters. General quarters is when you have to go sit in your
cell.
I wouldn't say it's a cell, but you go sit where you live at. Whether maybe they're doing like a fire exercise or whatever, so they don't want a bunch of people walking around. There's one time they called general quarters. We were in general quarters all day. We were like, are we gonna get fed? Like, what's going on? And they brought us food, and it was frozen ham and cheese sandwiches and grape juice. And we're like, all right, what are we doing here? You know,
this feels like prison.
I had to stick my sandwich under my pillow to thaw it out. Yeah.
Or Logan does that sometimes with his popsicles.
That wasn't even me.
But
yeah, there's a lot of times on deployments where you're like, all right, this sucks, and then you end up looking back with your buddies, you're like, that's probably one of the best times I've had.
And you were like, at this point, you're like, when you're thawing your ham and cheese sandwich, right? I think I should help people with their finances instead. I think that sounds like a much better move.
That didn't come until last year, actually. That deployment was 2020, yeah.
Oh shit, we missed 4 years.
Yeah.
Or 3
So
years.
back up.
2021.
So what happened in Africa?
I actually got sent back early. I forgot what they call it. They send a group of Marines back early to pretty much prepare everything for the Marines that are coming home. It's not like we didn't really miss anything. They send us back while the ship's heading back to the U.S. So we really just started like a week or two earlier. Depending on how far they are, maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Different ship. You go by plane.
Yeah, they send a few from every boat. So we had 3 ships with the Marine Expeditionary Unit.
Gotcha.
So they send a few back on each ship. But so they actually flew me into Africa, Djibouti, Africa, via V-22, which is an Osprey, the tilt rotor.
Those are legit.
No, they're not.
No, they look cool.
They're so
legit.
sketchy.
Looks cool from the ground.
There's a lot of accidents too that happen. But yeah, I was on that thing. I'm like, dude, we're gonna die. What's going on? It's like shaking. And you have like a hydraulic leak. And you're like,
They're old, aren't they?
I don't know how old they are.
He's thinking of it strictly from his mechanical area, and he's like, "There's way too many moving parts on this motherfucker." I'm wrong.
What's
He's
going
like,
on?
like a normal helicopter says, like, "Yeah, we got one thing moving here." He's like, "You got way too much going on here."
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, this hatch is down on the back and that thing's leaking. That's not good. You got the dude kicking his feet off the back of the airplane. Like, what the fuck's going on?
It's been leaking for 3 months, dude. It's fine.
Like, fuck, bro. But yeah, we
That's
flew
normal.
in. Dude, it was bad. Yeah,
We'll fill the oil when we get back.
I was like,
If you ever drove an old GMC 553, they all leak, bro.
you know, you got to slam the door. Same thing.
Yeah.
No, it's not the same thing. But yeah, flew 3 of us from our ship into Africa from CLB. It was me. I was a sergeant at the time. I'm still a sergeant, but me, the logistics officer in charge, and then the maintenance OIC. So Captain Frank Blackman, he got out of the Marine Corps actually. Frank Blackman, shout out to you. You're the real one for helping me out when I was quarantined down there. And then Chiwo English, about to retire, great guy. But yeah, it was 3 of us. We're only supposed to be there for a day. Like literally, we're supposed to be there for 12 hours. We're like, oh, you're in Africa, you got to take a COVID test now. And we're like, fuck. And then
You were in Africa for 12 hours, got COVID.
I had like allergies because I had just been in the middle of the ocean for like 4 months. Yeah. So I'm in Africa. It's the desert. Like I'm dry. I'm sneezing, whatever. And we were with a Navy chief. Forgot his name. And every day we're doing accountability in the morning. Like, all right, everybody's alive. Cool. Nobody like got killed somehow. He's like, hey man, do you have COVID? I'm like, I don't think so. I feel fine. I just have some
You're like, hey, they gave
sinus.
they gave me a vaccine. It's supposed to work for everyone, right?
No. We go to the testing center. They do the whole nose swab. That stuff sucks. And then
Touch your brain with it a little bit.
oh my gosh, you went in there, bro. I was like, fuck. Yeah, tested us. I was the only one that failed it. And they're like, oh, well, somebody's got to stay with Sergeant Neves. He can't just be there by himself. So Captain Blackman stayed back with me.
Was Blackman super excited?
He was like, dude, I fucking hate you. He's like, you suck. Like, I was about to go.
He said one day,
I'm supposed to be my wife tomorrow, and now I'm here with you.
He said, if you ever get on a podcast one day, you better shout me out for this.
But yeah, he was pretty upset. I mean, you can't blame him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't blame him.
if you're getting told you're going home, you're super stoked, and then you have a Marine that shits on all your
Zach
flights.
has Neves. Or has COVID.
Yeah. But yeah, I test positive for COVID. Quarantine me is supposed to be for 10 days. Day 4, the CDC came out and changed it to 5. So I was like, thank God. So I got out after 5 days. They quarantined me in the shipping container. I forgot what they called them over there, but it's pretty common, like barracks that the soldiers sleep in, because or the airmen sleep in, because Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti is an Air Force base, and they're not terrible, right? Like they have a floor, and I don't remember
The floors are good.
I don't remember if they had like painted plywood on the walls or if it was just metal or what. But there's like a door, there's a window, there's an AC unit, so it's not like you're just in Africa getting beat on.
So it's pretty much like if you go to a construction site, whatever they're operating out at the front, you're living in one of those.
Well, that's more of like a trailer. Those are nicer.
Okay, like a demoted trailer.
Think of a white cargo container.
With
Cargo container with a door, a window, and an AC unit. And they're just stacked together, sideways and up. And you look at it and you're like, that's a fucking apartment.
So what if you had one in the middle? How do you have a window?
No, they're just like next
They're
to
on
each other.
they're on the front.
Oh.
Yeah, the window's on the front. It's like the front.
They're stacked.
Like think of like a shipping container. Like the door's on the end. So you have a door on like the right side, and then you have a window and an AC unit. Like that's it.
Yeah, sounds nice.
I mean, it could have been way worse. You know?
I think I bet actually if we built those here, we could Airbnb them.
I think you could.
People would probably actually like them.
Probably. I mean, there was 2 bunk beds in there.
Newfound hipsters and stuff would be like, yeah, I'm roughing it. I'm going to stay in this
camping.
shipping.
That's
Yeah.
not camping.
You guys can rent out bunkers on Airbnb, and I think they might be nicer than that.
They'd be pumped to get to stay in a shipping container.
But yeah, did that. Captain Blackman, man, he was awesome. Just texted me the whole time, like, hey man, what do you want? You know, you want something from the PX, which is like the little grocery store on base. They would bring me, or he would have to go grab me lunch. And the chow hall's not great on Camp Lemonnier. Fun fact, actually, the best chow I've ever been to was in Kuwait, at Camp Buren. Phenomenal.
Well, that thing was built. It's been there for how long?
Dude. They had like ice sculptures for Thanksgiving and shit. It's pretty legit.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, he grabbed me. He's like, hey man, they got hamburgers with no cheese and like chicken strips. Basically what you told me earlier.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want either of those things. So he's like, all right, you want Subway?
I was telling you that our
Don't even try to compare
our
this,
quarantine
dude.
in our Mexico resort was very similar.
Don't even try to compare.
Almost identical, actually.
I'd have traded for that in a heartbeat. 100%. But yeah, he was awesome. Brought me, you know, hey, I don't feel like eating that shit. Can you bring me like they had a Smoothie King on the base. Hey man, bring me like a super large protein shake, please. He's like,
You said they had a Subway too?
They had a Subway.
Dude, I've been just sitting there having Smoothie King and Subway all day.
But you couldn't leave your
I could not leave, no.
shipping container for 5 days.
I can go to the bathroom, and there was like a community bathroom. So you get out and you walk to. They had like a COVID bathroom, like that was the quarantine
Oh,
bathroom.
you even had a special COVID bathroom.
Yeah, you walk in there and it's just like think of like just like a public restroom. Like you got a wall of sinks and mirrors, and then you have the stalls, and then on the other side of the stalls are the showers.
That's actually exactly how my college dorm was set up.
I mean, yeah, it's basically it's like a co-ed bathroom, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a male and there's a female, so you're not commingled in that sense. But yeah, we can get out, go to the bathroom, shower, whatnot. We had to come back. Yeah, I was in there for New Year's of 2022. I'll never forget. Yeah.
What a way to bring in the new year.
Yeah.
In Africa.
Yeah.
In a shipping container.
Djibouti. Yeah. Thankfully, though, so Djibouti, Africa's third world country, so there's no cell service really. There's actually no like data on your phone. There's no like Wi-Fi you connect to unless you have it.
I don't have Starlink yet.
No.
Just tell Elon to get off that.
Hey man, what the hell? But fortunately enough, there was he was in the Army. He was a security guard. He was like the commanding general's private like driving detail. Like he pretty much sat in the turret of a Humvee when the base general would go out in town. But he got quarantined with me, and he had a Wi-Fi router. So I was like, thank God.
I actually don't know why, like, the U.S. military hasn't partnered like with Elon to say, hey, we can give these guys internet anywhere they're at in the world.
I don't think the military wants to give them internet.
I think it would probably be helpful.
Hey, just kind of like how he said earlier, he's like, tell their parents where they're at. They let someone else know. It travels down the funnel, and then next thing you know, they know where they're at. But
yeah, thankfully I had internet, so I was able to watch like Netflix or whatever. But,
so then you finish up there, come back home.
Yeah.
You come straight back to United States from Africa?
No, I flew from this rinky-dink ass airport in Africa. Sketchiest airport I've ever been to in my entire life. You literally walk into a little annex. They're like, all right, there's your plane. No security. They're not checking your bags. Nothing. And you're like, fuck. Like, so they put you, I flew Qatar Airlines. It's actually a pretty badass plane. Got on the plane, sat down. They flew us to Doha, Qatar. It was like a 4, 5, 6 hour flight from there to there. Got off in Doha, and we had to like run to our next plane because it was like back to back. And Doha airport is fucking massive. Like, you been there? No. It's huge. It's huge.
Where's that at?
Doha, Qatar. Qatar is in the Middle East. It's actually a really nice country. There's a lot of like resorts and vacation spots up there, but massive airport, like huge. And we get off on the tarmac, not like in a terminal, and they're like, all right, go that way. And you're like, fuck, what? So we're like running into the airport, and then we had to go through security again. It was wild. Got on our plane, barely like made our plane flight. It was Captain Blackman, some civilian chick, and myself on like a 3-row in the middle. And the civilian chick's like, hey, can one of you guys like swap places with me? We're like, absolutely fucking not. Like, this is a 17-hour flight. Like, no, I don't want the aisle. And she's like, all right, well, I'm gonna move somewhere else. We're like, hell yeah, cool. So we had the middle seat. But yeah, me and Captain Blackman just got absolutely toasted on that flight. Free booze. So
what?
I'm being dead serious. We did. Hey,
17 hours.
We just spent 4 months in the ocean and didn't really drink it all. Like, hey, I want a whiskey Coke. Keep them coming.
Yeah, I like it. So, what is your next steps in the Marines look like from that? Like, you get deployed, come back home.
Yeah. Flew to Dallas. Hung out in Dallas for an hour. Flew to San Diego International Airport.
So you actually came through Dallas on your way back to San Diego?
Hit DFW. Yeah, hung out. I think we were there for like 2 hours, so there wasn't enough time to like leave or go. My family's from there too, so I was hoping I could have a big enough layover to go see him, but didn't have that. Flew to San Diego, got picked up in like, I think that was on like a Thursday. Monday we were at our headquarters on base, getting stuff prepared.
So you get back to headquarters. Now you've had your deployment. That was the thing that you wanted.
Yeah. So in January of 2021, I had gotten HISTed, which stands for Headquarters Selection Team. Basically got voluntold to do a special duty assignment. Marines listening, you guys know what a HIST is, but essentially I got selected to be a recruiter. I'm like, hey, if you want to stay in the Marine Corps, you're going to go be a recruiter. And it's pretty much kind of how that goes. So my entire deployment, I knew I was going to have to come back and go to recruiter school. When we got back from deployment, I was actually going through a divorce with my first wife. So I was pretty much checked out mentally with everything. I actually was about this close to getting out of the Marine Corps. A month before I was supposed to check in at basic recruiter school, I decided that I actually wanted to pursue it.
So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. We can cut it out 100%. How hard is it to have a relationship and having deployment, having be in that profession? Because that was actually one of the things that was like, that was the main reason I ended up not going in the Navy, was 100% because I was with Madison for a long time. She goes, this isn't what I wanted to sign up for.
Absolutely.
And I told her, I was like, I feel like a duty to my country is something like, still to date, you can ask, like, that's still one thing I'm like, I don't have a sure answer to. Everyone looks at like the life and everything is like business, everything's great. But one of my like main questions to myself all the time is like, I don't feel like I did that for my freedom. And I feel like it's one of those things it's not just a given to everyone. So it's like, how hard was that having a relationship in that? If you don't want to, you can.
That's a good question. You can keep it in too. I think people actually kind of may want to hear this or maybe get some advice from this, but really hard. But it comes down to the type of relationship you have with your significant other. So my first marriage, a lot of things were great and a lot of things were not. And we got married. I was 21. She was 20, very young. And we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, I don't think. So it was actually, she was a Marine too. So she deployed in, I think it was like September of 2020. Yeah, September of 2020. She came back May of 2021. I deployed August of 2021. So she was gone for 9 months. So there was already some disconnect there. Naturally, it's going to happen. You spend 9 months away from somebody. You're going to socially disconnect with them, emotionally also. So then she came back. There was like 2.5 months we had together before I was going to leave. And they told us our deployment was going to be 9 months. It was actually shorter at 7. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened and why we got separated, but it comes down to the type of relationship you have with your significant other. There probably should have been some conversation before we got married, like, okay, well, I plan on deploying, you plan on deploying, we both plan on staying in the Marine Corps. It's going to be hard. We didn't really have that conversation. I don't regret not doing that. Everything happens for a reason.
100%.
God had a plan for us, and he knew that we weren't supposed to be together. So that's kind of what happened. But my wife now is fucking awesome. Like, fucking awesome. Met her. I told her, I was like, hey, Marine Corps is what I want, and it's going to be hard, and I need you to understand that. She was like, I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't think I could do this. So we still have a lot of conversations about it, about what I want to do with my career in the Marine Corps, and I got to make sure it tailors her, my stepdaughter. I just got to make sure I'm keeping everybody in the loop, which I don't think a lot of service members really do that. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but yes, it's your career, but it's your family also.
100%.
And I don't think a lot of people really think about that when they, whether it be they're married and join, or they join and they get married. But it comes down to the type of person you're with. Your wife told you she didn't want that. Absolutely, that's perfectly fine.
Well, we had a lot of long conversations, and what most people don't know is, like, we've been together 12 years now, but our one point when we weren't together was actually because of what I wanted to do. It was one of those things that I weighed the option, and it's like, once again, everything happens for a reason, and Absolutely. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
But it's like, there's that like void that I don't feel like I filled, like, personally. And it's like, but I also know that, like, she's the most important person in my life. And it was like, I had to take a step back to look at that, to say, is me doing what I have to do the most important thing for the people around me? Because my dad didn't want me doing it. Of course, like, a lot of times your parents they don't want to see their kids flying over to go do that.
Our mom told us growing up, she's like, I did it so you guys didn't have to.
Yeah.
And I think the term military family, I think that's taken loosely, because I know Samantha's, my wife's, her cousin is in the military stationed out in Hawaii right now. But when he married his wife, he told her, he's like, this is kind of what you're signing up for. He's like, I'll get restationed. Stuff's going to happen. And essentially it's like, are you willing, us and the kid, to move across the country at a drop of a dime?
Yeah.
And the term military family, I think, it's like, stuff's going to come up. And especially, I think your first marriage with 2 individuals in the military,
mm-hmm.
That's something where it's like, hey, you're stationed here, they're stationed there. It's like going separate ways. And then now, is your current wife in the military?
No.
So I think that's something I think helps a ton.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's also, I think, having those conversations too, they're just like, everyone's on a very clear.
And the military does a really good job at keeping families together. Like, the last thing the Marine Corps wants to do is have a divorce Marine. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not good for anybody. So like I've seen cases to where like Marine Corps officers had a spouse who was also a Marine Corps officer, and Marine Corps officers aren't very common. You know, there's a lot less Marine officers than there are than enlisted Marines. So I've seen that, you know, like, hey, it's only going to be 3 or 4 months before we're together again. But when it comes to the enlisted side, like there's so many different Marine Corps jobs. There's like 180 different things you could do. So my ex-wife, she was supply. So she can go anywhere. You know what I mean? I was a diesel mechanic on a specific vehicle, so there's only a few places I could go. You know what I mean? So that wasn't really the issue, but it comes down to just talking to your significant other. You know, like I'm fortunate enough to be able to have the next like 5 or 6 years of my career planned out. Like I know exactly what's going to happen as long as everything goes my way. And she knows what's going on. You know, like, hey, I'm gonna be gone this time of this year for this long. You know, and I'll be back. And then I'll be doing this. And then, you know, I'll do that. Then I'll go over here. And then we'll get orders. And I get to pick where I want to go. And this is where I want to go. You know, so things like that. But it all boils down to communication, you know.
100%.
Everybody at this table is married. So you know how to communicate with your significant other. And it's just what you got to do.
And I think a lot of times too, I think I've talked to people that are 60 years old, that a lot of my friend group that I'm around is 55 plus years of age, and one of the biggest like words of advice I've got from them in a relationship side, I think it's helped Mass and I, as we've always progressed in businesses, having those hard conversations and understanding that communication is always going to change as you develop as people. And it's communication between her and I is way different now than it was when we were in college. Like college, I'm not going to say we had the most mature conversations, but now it's like we're having those conversations now that it's like, okay, over the next 5 years, what does X, Y, and Z look like? And from her viewpoint and from my viewpoint, and how do we come together to build that future? And I think communication in a lot of relationships is kind of lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's two people that you're trying to run parallel, having no earthly idea what the person next to you is thinking. And they can't know 100% of what you're thinking all the time. And I think that the communication side is just, and I see it in business, I see it in friendships and whatever it may be, that the better the communication, I mean, the better the relationship, better the partnership in business, whatever, any aspect.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it just in industries we've worked with where it's like, even though you're deployed for 9 months, say you have someone that's buried in a business for however many years to get their position to where they want to be, they shut out their significant other. It's something where, going back to that communication, it's like, hey, this is our 5-year plan. It's like, I know when Samantha and I left my last job to this current job, I'm like, life's going to change. I'm like, I'm going from this pay to this pay. I'm like, things are going to change. And we were both under the same assumption of like, hey, we're growing together. We're going to make it work. And we're going to figure it out along the ride. It's like, do we have all the answers right now? It'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're like, yeah, the next 5 years, like if everything goes my way, let's go.
Yeah.
We all know nothing ever goes
I mean,
our way.
I mean, there's always that hey, you know, things can change. You know,
Yeah.
There could be a World War III and my entire plane gets fucking shit on. But
Yeah.
you don't know that, right?
Which every time I create this perfect map in my head, it normally lasts about every bit of 30 days
That's usually
until
how it
the
goes.
whole thing
Yeah.
goes.
And circumstances change every 30, 60, 90 days.
It
So,
does.
I mean, things are going to switch.
So at what position did you want to get in? I want to, Dolan over there making noise.
Nice.
At what position in the Marines did you want to get into the financial side?
Yeah. Good question. So,
because realistically, I could talk with you for 4 hours on like
finance?
on just everything.
Well, maybe there needs to be a part 2.
There is definitely going to be a part 2.
He's like, what I'm saying is a podcast going a lot better than joining the military.
Maybe there should be a part 2.
Zach was actually right. We are going to cut this podcast into 2 parts. Lots of great insights still coming from Zach outside of the military space, going into business, the financial world. You're going to want to stick around. We're going to catch up with Zach on part 2 of the M3 podcast next week on Monday.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.